We love boxing. Inauguration of belts and titles and Rant Part 2. Alright, the World Colored Middleweight and Heavyweight Championship. Now, this was a title inaugurated by black boxers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And I can only assume, with some critical thinking, that since many black fighters could not get world title fights and or were feared by most white fighters, or most fighters wouldn't fight them, even some of the black ones, even some of the black fighters didn't want to fight some of these good black fighters, that they had to crown themselves king, and they had to make their own championship, and rightly so. Plus, y'all gotta understand, during this time and era in history, black folks had their own shit. Black folks had their own segregated stuff, such as, and I'm talking about 19th going into the 20th century, so that means from, let's say, the 1850s up until the 1930s. So you had Rosewood, all black community. You had Black Wall Street, the great economic all black community. You had the Negro Leagues baseball. You had that all black hockey league, which was the first hockey league in the Americas. So just like the Negro Baseball League, who used to whoop down the MLB in their once a year all-star matchup, by the way. I think the Negro Leagues was something like 21-3 versus the MLB in the all-star game. But anywho, and just like the all-black or the colored hockey league, they were made and sustained by blacks because they had some sort of community structure then. And also because no one else would let blacks into their organizations. Everybody had their own shit back then, all right? Nobody wasn't crying and begging to be in someone else's stuff. You just made your own. We need to start doing that again today, man. So maybe black folks here in America will be forced to create their own. But that's a whole nother topic. Back to boxing. Now, it's my educated guess that in the U.S., not even all of North America, just the U.S., little 50 states, this title may have spanned a little farther back than just the 19th and 20th century. Okay, now this is just my speculation, but we know that in other places such as Mexico, Panama, Puerto Rico, England, Asia, Pacific Islands, Cuba, they all had their country champion. They all had their grand champ of their province or state or nation before all these belts. And we see that with Peter Jackson, or was it the young Peter Jackson? Y'all know how they used to switch up and change up and use each other's names all around. But he was a brother. He was a black dude, either at lightweight or light heavyweight, who had the Mexican championship for a short while. Henry Armstrong, we know that he had the Californian Mexican title for a while after he defeated he defeated a few of their champions and had the belt a short while. He defeated Baby Casanova. He defeated Baby Arismendi and Casanova. There's another dude who was the Panamanian. He was the Panamanian heavyweight champion. He was fighting either somebody from the Black Murderers Row or some other up and coming dude that was smaller than him. Daggone. Well, anyway, y'all get the drift. There were many so-called uncrowned quote-unquote champions. These other islands and other territories all had acclaimed champions. So since the U.S. was the new cream of the crop, the new melting pot in the early 1900s, the new quote-unquote new world, regional champions such as Kid Chocolate from Cuba, Irish and English champions such as John Sullivan and Jack Bloomfield, Puerto Rican champions such as Montañez and Escobar, they all came to America with their titles, or with their acclamation, with their proclamation of being champs where they're from. They all came to America to become world champions, to become acclaimed world champions. Like Eddie Murphy, dude started coming here to America to prove who the man was, and vice versa. If everyone said you was the man, you the champ over in America in the new world. But let's say people are saying, nah, man, the real champ is over there in Cambodia. The real champ is over there in Britain. That dude, he a world beater. and people saying he was the man, then you being the champ over here in America, you would fly your behind or wherever. You know, because I'm sure there were other matches where, you know, dudes from, let's say, France will fly over to fight somebody from Jamaica and vice versa. But if you were the champ over here in America, the acclaimed world champ, but people are saying there's another bigger and bad or just as bad champ over in Norway somewhere, then you would get on the boat or get in the plane or whatever your method of transportation was, and you would go over there and see that joker. And many of fighters have done this, such as Montañez and Sugar Ray Robinson and Kid Azteca, Small Montana. A lot of fighters have done this and countless others.
Don't represent us color folks.
Now, the World Colored or Black Championship was the only recognized middleweight championship available to blacks prior to 1895, or at least to my knowledge. I'm gonna have to, you know, research that again. But there were black or colored middleweight champions before Theodore Tiger Flowers, such as Harris the Black Pearl Martin. But when Tiger Flowers, aka the Georgia Deacon, vacated the colored middleweight title in 1926 after he beat Harry Greb for the world-renowned acclaimed middleweight championship title. After he did that and vacated the colored title in 1926 and got the middleweight world acclaimed title, that title went dormant. The colored middleweight championship went dormant, or at least went underground, or was discontinued. Anyway, it went dead until the 1940s when Charlie Burley was the proclaimed world colored middleweight champ. Right, and I feel like they brought it back because fighters such as Charlie Burley and other fighters in the Black Murderers Row was not getting title shots, and they were all so good and great and beating people down in exhibitions, and champs were dodging them and white folks were dodging them, and I think they had to bring it back. Like, well, you know, we gotta give y'all some type of title since you can't get any real title shots. But side note, two of the it might have been more than two, but two of the world colored middleweight champions, George Byer and Sam Langford, also won the world colored heavyweight championship.
Color folks.
Another side note, maybe I shouldn't say world, or maybe the title shouldn't have been called world, cause y'all know how America gets something and, you know, they try to own it like it's theirs, or they act as if they're the owner of it and they're really not. So I said that to say that maybe in a few other places there was another black or melanated championship, such as in Cuba or Spain or France. Now, again, this is just speculation. But from my experiences, my personal experiences, the relations of melanated people to non-melanated people are usually better in other countries, in most other countries. For example, you can go to the Philippines, or you can go to India or something, and even though you have a darker complexion, you're still considered that nationality. You know what I'm saying? You can meet Colombians that look like Celine Dion, but then you can meet Colombians that look like Wesley Snipes as well too. All right. Also, from reading, I didn't see any special quote-unquote black champions separate from just the regular champion in most other countries. But I'm guessing maybe there were some in some underground spots or cult leagues. I mean, you never know unless you were there. But we know for sure that America had a black champion. Now, the self-proclaimed first champ of the colored black middleweight championship was Johnny Banks, aka the Darky Wizard. He claimed the championship in the early 1880s, or either he created it or possibly he revamped it during that era. I don't know, but he's usually the first recognized black or colored middleweight champion.
Represent us color folks.
Now, in my opinion, the black heavyweight and middleweight title was more like a town thing. You can even go as far as to say a hood thing, but I would say it was more like a town or colloquial thing. just like it was in Mexico, just like it was in Cuba, just like it was in Australia, Hawaii, etc. It was known. I repeat, it was known. Folks knew about the black colored champions because they were usually dodging them. Okay, so mofos knew who those champions were because they were usually dodging them, or they felt like they didn't have to fight them because they were in a different league, maybe physically, like they was in a different, like y'all league don't fight our league, or for whatever reasons. Maybe it was money, or maybe it was the whole black thing. Y'all different. Whatever the reasons were. But the black heavyweight and middleweight titles and title holders were known, and they were publicized at certain events as well. But it was not world recognized because, again, many a world champion was not trying to fight these dudes, such as the Murderers Row, the Black Murderers Row, and other melanated champions. So I suppose by business or public or maybe because of organizational standards, the black middleweight and heavyweight championship was looked upon as secondary. But by competition and athletic and talent and world level boxing standards, in my opinion, they were primary. They were primo. And you knew if you stepped in there with those beasts or those monkeys or those creatures or those gods or whatever the hell you was calling them, because again, it was well documented that many white and a few of the world prize title black champions avoided the Black Murderers Row like they would have played. And let me say this, if you ducked or didn't want to fight, or for whatever reasons didn't fight a member out of the Murderers Row, you were going to have to see one of them jokers sooner or later, especially if you were black. Now, if you wasn't black, maybe you wouldn't have to go home and hear all that trash talk. But like, people always accuse my man Sugar Ray Robinson. A lot of people ducked Charlie Burley, and I wouldn't say ducked him. I just feel like he thought, look, I'm fighting all these other champions. The risk is way higher than the reward. Okay, maybe you can call it a duck. But Sugar Ray Robinson did fight other members out the Black Murderers Row.
Sucker, look at you.
Well, I gotta go in on this a little bit. I'm just tired of people, trying to compare Sugar Ray Robinson's legacy to some now dude or such and such duck. Well, Sugar Ray Robinson duck Charlie Burley. Look, man. Not only did Sugar Ray Robinson fight another member out of the Black Murderers Row and knock their behind out, Sugar Ray Robinson fought everybody from every weight. Everybody from Willie Pep's weight all the way up to light heavyweight. See, you didn't know that. Sugar Ray Robinson even bossed up and whooped down Willie Pep at featherweight while he was still an amateur. See, but you didn't know that. Now, if you felt you were tough or great and you weren't scared like many of these champions were, you proved it by fighting a black or colored world champion or black or colored world champions like Archie Moe and Henry Armstrong and Jack Johnson. And I'm trying to think of some white fighters because there were a good bit of white fighters who weren't shook like the rest of the white fighters were. They didn't mind fighting, black fighters, or they didn't mind fighting the cats from the Murderers Row, the Black Murderers Row. But yeah, saying you are the colored or black middleweight heavyweight champ was similar to saying, I whoop such and such ass. I'm the man until somebody can whoop me. On some old school stuff. Yeah, I'm the man on this block. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nobody else the man until they could see me. And then you started traveling around other blocks, and it was almost like some underground fighting club or something. Y'all remember that game Pit Fighter? You got a real MMA champion, but I know somewhere on the planet, on the earth, there just plays some type of fight club type thing going on underground, and there's a champion there. But I would imagine that if they was to surface, that the real champions will call them out, or they will call the real champions, and the fight will go down. But who's to say, man? It's a totally different era.
Sucker, you ain't nothing.
And we've all experienced this in school or in our town, or for example, let's say you at the local gym, and one dude at the gym says he's the weightlifting champ until somebody can outlift him, can out squat him, can out curl him, do more push-ups than him, or whatever. And there'll be some days where somebody outlifts him, right? But let's say only two other people were there to witness it. If they even saw it, maybe they were preoccupied, but let's say only two other people were there to possibly witness it. And sometimes the champ will lie about it. you know, or hopefully he'll be honest and say, yeah, such and such got me on a day, he outlifted me, and only a few people will hear, yeah, he right, he really did outlifted me. But you gotta expect it. There's other occasions where he'll lie about it, like, nah, man, you didn't outlift me, man. Didn't nobody see it, man. Nah, I got you here. You know, arguing with dude. Nah, I really did get you. Nah, you ain't get. You know how dudes do. So I'm imagining that type of stuff happened with the colored black championship. I'm imagining. I'm not sure, y'all. This is speculation, using my imagination here. And on the term recognize for boxing, I just want to say that I think that recognize really means that it was made official. When they say the recognized world champion, the recognized black champion, the recognized Mexican champion, whatever. I think that the term recognize was used to make it official by being put in books or in primary resources or put in the newspaper as in a first-hand account saw it and documented it and put it in stone. So to me, that's what I figure recognized champion means. So basically a gang or a group of people with resources got together to make these bodies of boxing politics, such as the EBU or the NBA. They had money, and then they forced the standard on everyone else to where they had to go through them to be the champ, and so on and so forth. And in some cases, it was for the better, especially when it came to certain rules. You know, we can't be fighting 100 rounds and fighting to the death and shit no more. But heaven forbid you get someone who didn't write down the truth, or who was paid to lie about it, or they didn't tell what really happened. They left out certain details, or the champ fought an exhibition somewhere in some town and he lost, but no one important enough was there to write it down or to you know, document what really happened, or to record it, or if they were there, they called it an NC or unsanctioned bout. You know, all this type of stuff was going on, and we all know that happened a few times in history, or sometimes in history. But you know, we got the modern day boxing, and we still doing our thing.
In this corner.
Now the world colored heavyweight championship expired when Joe Louis became the world acclaimed heavyweight champion in 1937. All right, and again, the world colored middleweight championship went defunct or went underground in 1926 because Tiger Flowers vacated it when he got the real, or I could say the world acclaimed title from Harry Greb, and that didn't come back into the 40s. But once Joe Louis won the world title, the world colored heavyweight championship never came back. All right, so let's name some of the colored or black or a term I don't appreciate or care to use, but for historical reasons I'm gonna say it: Negro championships. All right, so let's name some of the black middleweight and heavyweight champions. All right, let's see. We got Sam Langford, Johnny the Darky Wizard Banks. You got Ed Martin, Frank Childs, Jack Johnson, Bob Armstrong, Morris Grant, Charles Hadley, Charles C. Smith, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Y'all look that up. Some real good history there. Some real good books about it. All right, on to the next title. The California and Mexican World Championship. Or maybe I should say provincial or area championship. Anyway, the California and Mexican title. All the way up until the early 1920s, 30s, and possibly even 40s. And it usually only premiered the lighter weight classes, such as featherweight, bantam, flyweight, and lightweight. Maybe it got up to welter, but I don't remember seeing any welterweight California Mexican champions. But yeah, the California Mexican title was a well-known title, and I can imagine that this title even goes back into history, dealing with, again, speculation, y'all, dealing with Mexican independence, the Mexican-American War, land claims. Man, y'all know that most of what we call Texas used to be Tejas. You know what I'm saying? Most of what we call nowadays New Mexico, Arizona, California, all that used to be Mexico or old country. But boxing to this day, y'all, is still real big in Mexico, the land of the warriors. You know what I'm saying? Peace to the Aztecs out there. Mexico is also a United States. I mean, we all know, or actually we should know, that Mexico is in North America, but Mexico is formally called the United States of Mexico. So don't sleep. All right. Publicized boxing began getting recognition in Latin America, y'all, in the modern 19th and 20th centuries. All right. Now, side note, y'all make a side note of this. Because boxing has always existed in these countries, you know, and all over the world, boxing has always existed, or some form of hand-to-hand pugilism and combat has always existed all over the world before the publicized new modern era. Okay, that's the end of the side note. But in the 1930s, Sixto Escobar became the first world champion from Puerto Rico by defeating Baby Casanova. All right, Sixto Escobar was the Puerto Rican champion at this time in history in the 1930s. Baby Casanova, Rodolfo Baby Casanova, was the Mexican champion, and they had an opportunity to fight for the world bantamweight title, the world acclaimed bantamweight title, and of course Sixto Escobar won, and this also started the what's that rivalry? The big Mexican versus Puerto Rico rivalry. This bout right here, y'all. Rodolfo Baby Casanova versus the two-time undisputed bantamweight champion Sixto Escobar started the huge Puerto Rican versus Mexico rivalry, and I think that was in 1935. I'm not sure. Y'all gotta go back and look that up. But yeah, but that bout started that rivalry back in the 30s. Also, you got the world-renowned Baby Arizmendi, who was also a Mexican champion in the early 1930s before he became the California and Mexican champion title holder, and before he became the world champion. All right, so Baby Arizmendi, big shout out to him being one of the great California Mexican champion title holders. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but because of Thai boxing, we know that Southeast Asia and probably all of Asia already had their champions too in the early 19th and 20th century. In the early centuries before the nowadays publicized, unified bubblegum era. All right, we know this is true because you had champs like Pancho Villa and Small Montana who came over here and already had 40, 50 bouts and did work. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me. Matter of fact, I think Pancho Villa might won the California Mexican title too. Speaking of Southeast Asia, hey, did y'all see that movie Ombak 2 and 3? Classic, man. Some fresh movies. I gotta check those out. Just looking at the dates alone and the creation of these titles, one could think that the California Mexican title and the Black world title are older than the actual world titles, or at least formed around the same time and same era. But anywho, we're gonna try to end this thing out, y'all. Try to be coherent for this. Let's see. All right, y'all. Now, when a champion, for any reasons beyond his control, has an illness or injury, or is unable to defend his title within his normal mandatory time, the sanctioning bodies may order an interim title bout, and the winner of that bout becomes the quote-unquote interim champion. Hence, that's the start of these little interim titles and stuff. You know, Keith Thurman had one, and there's always some interim champion at every weight. Which, to me, as soon as the champ gets back, y'all need to duke it out to see who the real one is. So, as soon as the champ gets back off of recess or is active again or whatever, there should not be a champ while there's an interim champ. That shit is dead. When the champ gets back, or he healed up his little injury, or he got back from the Bahamas, his ass should fight the interim champ.
Sucker, look at you.
Alright, the WBA and WBC, sometimes they freak it to where they change the status of their inactive champions to quote-unquote champion in recess. And I guess they do that opposed to just stripping the person of their title. And And to be honest, I do think they should give the champ a certain time to heal before saying, hey, man, if you can't come back and fight by such and such time, shoot, we're going to have to take your title, dog. We're going to have to strip you. You know, like how they did Enrique, what's the dude back in the 60s that said Enrique Pinder or whatever. You know, they gave him a certain amount of time and he didn't respond to that time, so they stripped him. Ali got his title taken away because when he went into recess over the whole Vietnam thing, you know, taking a stand for his beliefs and doing it for the black folks and doing it for people in general, human rights, Ali was stripped of the title, and then there was a heavyweight tournament to become the next heavyweight champion. And I'm pretty sure that Jimmy Ellis won it, and then right after he won, I think it was a 6 or 8 man tournament. Right after he won it, Joe Frazier whooped his head and then took the title and became heavyweight champion. Well, if Ali, when he finally got a recess, had to come back and immediately fight Joe Frazier, then every other champion should have to do that too. Kell Brook, he was stabbed recently. He came back, got stabbed and shit. He came back, and I think he was out. I don't know if he was out longer than a year, maybe half a year. But that dude had a big old long gash, you know what I'm saying? Big old long, I think it was a machete, something crazy, a sword or a machete sliced him up. And he had his little layoff, and then bam, he came back and he defended his title, and he still defends it now. Now the competition he's fighting, that's a whole nother story. But he is knocking jokers out. He is knocking out bums. So kudos for that. All right, yo, we're gonna close it out. Inauguration of belts and titles. The black or colored heavyweight, middleweight championship, California Mexican title, and then all the other countries' little small titles, you know, Dominican champ and the Fiji champ. We're going to do part 3. I'm going to be more coherent for that one. Y'all stay tuned. We love bossing. Catch y'all on the flip.